Welcome back to the weekly Education Pulse. I'm Sami.
And I'm Tony. Each week we bring to you the latest news and ideas shaping the international school sector around the world.
In this episode, we'll start with a roundup of this week's big headlines, from the rise of AI-powered assessment tools and the next evolution of the IB exams, to the UK's new post-16 qualification and another major school acquisition in Europe.
And for the news, we'll reflect on our time at EARCOS Leadership Conference in Bangkok, a week of inspiring sessions, bold ideas, and real conversations about how leadership, AI, and human connection are reshaping education.
Yeah, we've got a lot to unpack, Tony.
So let's dive in.
And we start this week with Pearson, one of the world's biggest education companies, which has just reported strong growth thanks to rising enrollments in virtual schools and the adoption of AI-driven assessment tools.
That's right. According to the company's latest update, Pearson Virtual Schools saw significant increases in both student numbers and revenue, while its new AI exam tool has gained traction with schools and governments looking to modernise assessment.
Yeah, the virtual schooling trend continues to show real resilience post-pandemic. Pearson's model, which includes full-time online schools like Connections Academy in the US, is now expanding globally, reaching families who want flexible, personalized learning.
And what's really interesting is how Pearson are coupling that with AI-powered grading and analytics. These tools are designed to give faster feedback to teachers, reduce marking loads, and identify student learning gaps earlier. A clear signal that AI is moving from theory to implementation at scale.
It's a good example of how big education companies are repositioning themselves, not just as publishers or content providers, but as full-service learning platforms that integrate curriculum, technology, and data.
It also raises an important point about access. As AI becomes more embedded into learning and assessment, the gap between schools with the resources to adapt to these tools and those without could widen.
True, but it also shows how fast the ecosystem is changing. In just a few years, virtual schools have gone from niche to mainstream, and AI has moved from buzzword to business driver.
It's a good reminder that innovation in education isn't slowing down. If anyone, anything, it's accelerating, especially for providers with the scale and infrastructure to deploy it globally. And staying on the theme of global education systems, the International Baccalaureate has announced its official dates for the November 2025 exam session, and there are a few key updates worth noting.
Yes, the exams will run from Friday the 24th of October through to Wednesday the 19th of November, with results to be released on Saturday the 3rd of January 2026. The IB has also confirmed the time zone allocations that determine exactly when each subject exam will take place across the world.
That time zone structure might sound technical, but it's a huge logistical challenge. With schools in more than 150 countries, the IB coordinates exams simultaneously across multiple regions, ensuring fairness while maintaining exam security.
Exactly, and those time zone arrangements are particularly important for schools in Asia Pacific, where the IB November session tends to be the primary exam window. It allows students in the Southern Hemisphere and tropical regions to align with their academic calendars.
What's also interesting here is the scale. The IB now serves more than 1.95 million students globally, and that number continues to rise as more national systems adopt or integrate IB pathways.
And that's something we've tracked over the past few years. The steady localization of the IB is no longer just a global export, it's being adapted within countries like Japan, South Korea, and India, where governments are co-designing bilingual or locally contextualized versions.
So while this announcement may seem procedural, it's a reminder of just how far the IB's influence reaches, both in terms of scale and in the shape of how global qualifications adapt to regional realities.
And for schools, of course, it marks the countdown. Time to start planning timetables, mock schedules, and teacher training for the 2025 session. And over to the UK now, where big changes are coming to post-16 education. The government has confirmed that V levels, a new suite of vocational qualifications, will replace BTECs as part of its major reform of technical education.
That's right. The V levels, short for vocational levels, are being introduced as the next generation of career-focused qualifications, sitting alongside A levels and T levels. They're designed to give students clearer, work-relevant pathways into employment or higher education.
Yeah, this is a significant shift. For decades, BTECs have been a core option for students wanting a more applied learning route. But the government's rationale is that the new V levels will be more streamlined, better aligned with industry needs, and offer a clearer sense of progression.
First teaching of V-levels is expected to begin in September 2026, with phased rollout replacing existing BTEC courses over the following few years. The aim is to reduce overlap and confusion between vocational pathways.
It's also worth noting that this reform has implications beyond the UK. Many British international schools, particularly those offering sixth form provision, currently teach BTEC programs, especially in business, sport, and performing arts.
Exactly, and schools overseas that rely on UK frameworks will need to adapt. For some, that could mean retraining staff, adjusting university guidance, or even reconsidering their sixth form portfolio entirely.
Yeah, and this change also feeds into a broader global trend we've been tracking, the rebranding, repositioning of vocational education. There's growing recognition that skills-based learning deserves parity of esteem with academic pathways.
So while V levels might sound like just another qualification acronym, they represent a meaningful shift in how education systems prepare students for the future of work, both in the UK and in the global British curriculum network. And finally this week to Spain, where Forfar Education has announced the acquisition of English International College in Marbella, further expanding its growing portfolio of premium international schools.
That's right, this deal strengthens Forfar's presence in Southern Europe, adding another highly regarded British international school to its network. EIC Marbella has a long-standing reputation for academic excellence and a strong community ethos, serving students from early years through to sixth form.
This acquisition continues Forfar's momentum after a very active period of growth. Over the past few years, they've built a diverse portfolio spanning the UK and Europe. And EIC Marbella adds both strategically location and brand prestige.
Yeah, what's interesting about this deal is how it reflects a broader pattern we've been seeing. Education investment becoming increasingly regional and strategic. Investors are focusing on markets like Spain, Portugal, and Italy, which have strong expatriate returning family populations, but where high quality international school supply is still catching up.
Exactly. And Forfar's approach, combining long established schools with strong reputations rather than launching from scratch, is proving effective. It provides both operational stability and immediate community trust.
Yeah, it's also another reminder of how consolidation remains a defining trend in international education. Groups are not just growing in number, but in sophistication, integrating shared services, leadership development, and collaborative learning across their networks.
So with Forfar now adding Marbella to the portfolio, and Nord Anglia's recent acquisition in Qatar and beyond, the international school landscape is clearly entering a new era, one defined by scale, quality, and diversification.
Absolutely, and it's fascinating to see how much of this growth is being led by groups that are strategically regional rather than purely global. Something we'll be unpacking in our next segment as we reflect on trends from the EARCOS Leadership Conference. And what a week in Bangkok it has been, Tony. The EARCOS Leadership Conference was packed, sessions on leadership, governance, innovation, and of course, a lot of AI.
Absolutely. It felt like the first conference in a while where every strand connected: leadership challenges, workforce realities, student well-being, and the technology piece all felt part of one coherent conversation about where schools are heading next.
Yeah, one of the sessions that really stuck with me was Dr. Sabba's keynote on AI and learning design. She spoke about moving from fear to agency, seeing AI not as a threat, but as a creative partner that expands what's possible for learners and teachers alike.
Yes, and her framing of designing for adaptability was powerful. She pushed us to think less about teaching students how to use AI and more about helping them to develop the mindset, curiosity, reflection, and empathy that will make AI a tool for innovation, not automation.
Exactly. She also challenged the idea that schools should just integrate AI into existing systems. Her argument was that AI should actually change the grammar of school, how we assess, how we collaborate, and how we design learning experiences for students.
That ties directly into what we've been hearing from school leaders all year, the need to redesign systems around agility rather than efficiency.
Yeah, and I also attended Chadwick International School Songdo's session, and it was fascinating. Their IT team showcased how they're using Agenic AI and vibe coding. It was all centered around how to utilize AI tools to develop student skills, as well as the responsible use of AI in the classroom.
It's the kind of experimentation that shows what happens when schools treat AI not just as a productivity tool, but as a way to build human connection more intelligently.
Yeah, and it's a reminder that AI's real potential isn't in replacing teachers, it's in augmenting empathy. It can give educators a new data on how students are feeling, learning, or collaborating, things that were previously invisible to us.
I thought Debra Wilson's keynote complemented that beautifully. She zoomed in and zoomed out on the big picture, the governance, the workforce, the anxiety, the complexity that school leaders are navigating.
Yeah, her section on liquid expectations really resonated. Parents, staff, students are now comparing school experiences to every other sector. They expect the frictionless digital interfaces of a rideshare app and the responsiveness of AI customer service.
Right, and that raises the stakes for leadership. Debra's reminder that independence doesn't mean isolation was spot on. Schools need strong governance structures that can act strategically in dynamic times, not just administratively.
Yeah, and she didn't shy away from the workforce piece either. Teacher shortages, AI anxiety, and the need to redefine staff culture. I thought her point about proximate governance, boards staying strategically close without drifting into operations, was one of the most practical ideas in the whole conference.
Felt like a through line to the entire event. The adaptability, agency, alignment. Whether we were talking about AI, well-being, or governance, it all came back to how schools can design systems that evolve without losing humanity.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, I came away thinking this year's EARCOS wasn't just about innovation for innovation's sake. It was about purposeful transformation. Schools are starting to connect the dots between data design and well-being in a way that feels genuinely helpful.
Agreed, and it's an exciting moment. The sector is finally shifting from catching up with change to shaping it. And that wraps up this week's Weekly Education Pulse.
Yeah, thanks for joining us as we explored the latest stories shaping global education and reflected on what we learned at this year's EARCOS Leadership Conference.
The big message for me was that innovation and leadership are no longer separate conversations. They're one and the same. The schools that will thrive are the ones designing for adaptability.
Absolutely, whether it's AI, governance, or well-being, this year's conference showed that education's future depends on how well we balance technology with humanity.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes.
And of course, we'd love to hear from you. What insights or innovations are shaping your school right now? Drop a comment below and join the conversation.
And we'll be back next week with more updates, reflections, and research from across the international school sector.
Until then, thanks for watching and see you next time.